You need to pack your things and leave right now. You make our wealthy customers very uncomfortable.
Why?
You need to pack your things and leave right now, Richard said. You make our wealthy customers very uncomfortable. Sarah did not cry. She did not scream. She simply asked him why. Richard leaned in close. His smile was cruel. Look at this place, Sarah. This is a high-class establishment for the elite. Our guests pay thousands of dollars to be here. They want elegance. They want perfection. They do not want to look at a simple, small-town girl like you. You just do not fit our brand. You never will. He thought he was just firing an ordinary, struggling worker. He thought he was protecting his position. He had absolutely no idea that every single word he just said was being recorded. He had no idea that Sarah was not a helpless applicant. In reality, Sarah Jenkins was the secret partner and supreme owner of the entire Beaumont Crest franchise. She had inherited the massive estate from her late grandfather, but chose to stay out of the public eye. She was working undercover to see how her supervisors treated ordinary people. And Richard had just failed the test in the worst way possible. Before we see exactly how Sarah destroys Richard's career and exposes the dark secrets of this estate, take a quick second to subscribe to our channel. Turn on all notifications so you never miss a single dramatic story. Also, leave a comment right down below. Tell us exactly which country or city you are watching this video from today. We love reading your comments. Now, let us find out what happens next. To the rest of the world, Sarah Jenkins was a complete mystery. She was a young, highly intelligent woman who suddenly found herself inheriting a massive real estate and hospitality empire. Her grandfather had built Beaumont Crest from a small family farm into a luxury empire. He always taught Sarah to stay humble. He taught her to wash dishes, tend the land, and respect every worker. He knew how hard it was to make an honest living. Because of his lessons, Sarah valued people over money. But Sarah faced a major problem. After her grandfather passed away, the corporate office handled everything. She noticed something alarming on the financial sheets. The reputation of their flagship Valley location was sliding fast. Even worse, the local townspeople were writing terrible reviews. The locals complained about the service. They said the management was arrogant. They said regular citizens were treated like second-class people. Sarah was deeply worried. She believed that every guest should be treated like royalty. She also believed that every employee should be treated with dignity. One morning, Sarah called her loyal assistant, Toby Cross, into her office. "Toby, look at these complaints," Sarah said, pointing at her computer screen. "Something is fundamentally wrong at the Valley estate. The numbers are dying. The locals hate us. I need to know why." Toby sighed. "We have sent corporate inspectors there, Sarah. The supervisor, Richard Skinner, always gives us perfect reports. He says the customers are just being difficult. He says his staff is the best in the business." Sarah leaned back in her chair. She knew that inspectors wearing suits would never see the truth. When corporate bosses visit, everyone behaves perfectly. The moment the bosses leave, the bad behavior returns. "If I want the truth, I have to find it myself," Sarah said. Toby looked confused. "What do you mean? Do you want to call Richard for a surprise meeting?" "No," Sarah smiled. "Richard only knows the corporate lawyers. He does not know my face. I am going to apply for a basic hospitality job there. I will go undercover as a simple, entry-level worker. I want to see how Richard runs my estate when he thinks no one important is watching." Toby was shocked. "Sarah, that is dangerous. You are the owner. You cannot work as a basic server. The work is exhausting. The hours are brutal. What if someone recognizes you?" "I will change my appearance," Sarah said firmly. "I will wear simple clothes. I will use my middle name. I need to see the real culture of that property. My decision is final." The next day, Sarah began her transformation. She took off her expensive jewelry. She went to a local department store. She bought cheap denim pants. She bought a plain cotton shirt and simple work boots. She looked at herself in the mirror. Without her professional clothing, she looked completely different. She looked like a regular small-town girl trying to make an honest living. She submitted an online application for a staff position at Beaumont Crest. She used the name Sarah Lou. She created a simple resume, listing a few fictional local diners as her past work experience. As expected, the estate was desperate for help. They had a very high turnover rate. Employees were constantly quitting. Within 2 hours, Sarah received a call. She was invited for an interview the very next morning with the assistant head of staff. When Sarah arrived at the estate the next day, she walked through the staff entrance. The kitchen and prep areas were chaotic. Supervisors were yelling. The air was tense. She was met by a sweet, elderly worker named Martha Higgins. Martha looked exhausted. She had worked at the property for 20 years, long before it became a luxury resort. "Are you the new girl, Sarah?" Martha asked, wiping her hands on her apron. "Yes, I am," Sarah said, keeping her voice soft and humble. Martha smiled warmly. "Thank goodness. We are severely short-handed today. The supervisor is in a terrible mood. I will show you how to set the tables. Just stay calm and follow my lead." Martha handed Sarah a plain black apron. Sarah tied it around her waist. She felt ready to discover the secrets of her own empire. But before Martha could show Sarah to her station, the double doors swung open violently. A man walked into the room. He wore an expensive suit. He had a gold watch on his wrist. His face carried a permanent sneer. This was Richard Skinner, the greedy supervisor. Richard looked at Sarah. He scanned her from head to toe. He looked at her simple boots. He frowned deeply. He turned to Martha. "Who is this?" Richard asked, his tone dripping with arrogance. "This is Sarah, the new assistant," Martha said quickly. "We are short-handed today, Richard. She is here to help with the lunch rush." Richard walked around Sarah. He treated her like an object. "She does not look like a Beaumont Crest employee," Richard whispered loudly to Martha. "Our staff needs to look elite. She looks like she belongs in a cheap diner. She looks like small-town trash." Sarah kept her composure. She looked down at the floor, pretending to be intimidated. Inside, her blood was beginning to boil. This man was running her grandfather's dream, and he was already judging people based entirely on their clothes. "Please, Richard," Martha pleaded. "We have a big corporate party arriving in 30 minutes. We need help." Richard rolled his eyes. "Fine, but keep her in the back corner. Do not let her serve our VIP tables. If she makes one mistake, throw her out." Sarah was assigned to the outdoor terrace tables near the back kitchen. It was the hardest section. It was noisy and hot. Sarah did not complain. She grabbed her notepad and went to work. She smiled warmly at her first customers. They were a local family celebrating a small birthday. They did not look wealthy, but they were polite. Sarah treated them like royalty. She brought them extra bread. She refilled their drinks before they even asked. As she worked, Sarah observed the other supervisors and staff. She noticed a disturbing trend. The supervisors ignored tables if the customers did not look rich. They ran to serve men in luxury sports cars, hoping for giant tips. Meanwhile, regular citizens were left waiting for 30 minutes just to get water. Sarah saw Richard standing near the entrance. He was not helping the staff. Instead, he was busy laughing with wealthy investors. He was pouring complimentary wine for people who wore designer clothes. Suddenly, Sarah heard a loud crash in the hallway. She turned around quickly. A young, nervous worker had dropped a tray of expensive ceramic plates. Shards flew everywhere. The hallway fell completely silent. Richard rushed over. His face was bright red with anger. He did not ask if the worker was okay. He did not check if he was bleeding. Instead, he grabbed him by the arm and pulled him into the private back office. Sarah carefully followed them. She stood near the door to listen. "You stupid idiot," Richard yelled. "Do you know how much those plates cost? That is more than your entire weekly paycheck. You are clumsy and incompetent." "I am sorry, sir," the young worker stammered. The floor was wet. Someone spilled cleaning fluid and did not wipe it up. "I slipped. I do not care about your excuses." Richard barked. "That cost will be deducted from your wages, and you will work double shifts this weekend without overtime pay. If you complain, I will fire you and make sure you never get a job in this valley again." The worker looked crushed. He nodded his head silently and began cleaning up the mess with his bare hands. Sarah's fists clenched tightly. Deducting money from an employee's paycheck for an accidental breakage was highly illegal. Forcing people to work without overtime pay was a massive violation of labor laws. And it was happening right here, under her name. She realized the terrible truth. The high turnover rate was not because the work was hard. It was because Richard was a tyrant. He was abusing his power. He was exploiting poor workers who desperately needed their jobs to survive. By the afternoon, the heavy rush was ending. Sarah was exhausted. Her feet were throbbing. Her back was aching. But she felt proud. She had served many tables and received wonderful compliments from her guests. She went to the back station to rest for a moment. Suddenly, Martha Higgins sat down at a small table in the corner. Martha looked incredibly frail. She was taking a small sip of water during her first break in 6 hours. Martha looked like a grandmother on a very limited budget. She had dedicated her whole life to this property. Sarah walked over to her with a warm smile. "Are you doing okay, Martha?" Martha smiled sweetly. "I am just a little tired, dear. My husband is very sick at home, and I am trying to work as many hours as possible to pay for his care. I just needed 5 minutes to sit down." Sarah's heart melted. "Take all the time you need, Martha. I will cover your tables." But as Sarah was talking to her, Richard Skinner walked into the section. He looked over at the corner table. He looked at Martha resting her tired feet, his face filled with disgust. "What is this laziness?" Richard demanded, walking over to them. "Martha is just taking a short break, Richard," Sarah said calmly. "She has been working for 6 hours straight without stopping." "Breaks are for people who earn them," Richard hissed. "Look at her. She is old. She is slow. And she is slowing down my kitchen. She is an eyesore to our wealthy guests. And you, Sarah, you are spending too much time talking instead of working. Both of you need to get out." Sarah gasped. "I will absolutely not do that. Martha has worked here for 20 years. She deserves respect." Richard's eyes narrowed. He stepped closer to Sarah. He was furious that a simple new worker was defying his orders. "You do not tell me what to do," Richard growled. "I am the boss here. I run this estate. And honestly, looking at the two of you, you both look like trash. You don't belong in a luxury establishment." The room was quiet now. A few nearby customers and staff turned their heads to look at the commotion. Richard decided to make a public example out of Sarah. He wanted to show everyone who was in charge. He reached out, grabbed Martha's water glass, and threw it directly into the trash can. Martha gasped in shock. She covered her mouth with her hands, tears streaming down her face. Richard walked back to Sarah. He spoke loudly, so the entire room could hear him. "You are done here, Sarah. You are fired. Pack your things and get out. You do not fit the image of Beaumont Crest. Your appearance, your attitude, and your entire presence make our high-class customers very uncomfortable. We do not want your kind here." The kitchen staff watched in horror. The other workers stood in the corner, looking sad but too afraid of Richard to speak up. Martha looked down at the floor, heartbroken that the nice new girl was being treated so cruelly because of her. Sarah stood perfectly still. She looked at the trash can. Then she looked at Richard. Instead of crying, instead of begging for her job, Sarah did something that shocked everyone in the room. She began to laugh. It was a cold, confident laugh. She reached into her apron pocket. She pulled out her smartphone. She pressed a button to stop a recording. She had recorded every single word Richard had said to her, to the young worker, and to Martha. Richard scoffed. "What are you doing? Do you think a recording scares me? I am the supervisor. The corporate office loves me. I bring in wealthy guests. Your little tape means nothing." "Are you sure about that, Richard?" Sarah asked. Her voice completely changed. It was no longer soft and submissive. It was authoritative. It was powerful. It was the voice of a woman who owned the entire estate. She reached back into her pocket. She pulled out a small leather wallet. She flipped it open. Inside was her official corporate identification badge. It featured a professional photo of Sarah. Above her name, printed in bold letters, were the words, Chief Executive Owner. Richard leaned in to look at the badge. He laughed. "What is this joke? A fake ID? Do you think I am stupid? Sarah took off her plain black apron. She tossed it onto a nearby table. Call the corporate headquarters right now, Richard, Sarah said calmly. Ask to speak with my personal assistant, Toby Cross. Tell him that Sarah Jenkins is standing right here, and she wants to know if your employment should be terminated immediately. The name hit Richard like a lightning bolt. Sarah Jenkins. He had seen that name on his contracts. He had seen that name at the top of the estate's deed. He knew that the legendary founder had left everything to his granddaughter, Sarah. Richard's face instantly lost all of its color. He became as white as a sheet. His hands began to shake violently. He looked at the badge. He looked at Sarah's eyes. He finally recognized the sharp, intelligent gaze of the woman who owned the entire Valley Empire. MMS Jenkins? Richard stammered. His voice cracked completely. You are the owner? The entire room went dead silent. The staff stopped walking. The chef stood at the doorway, their mouths wide open. Martha looked like she had just seen a miracle. Yes, Richard, Sarah said, stepping forward. I am the owner. I am the woman who owns this property. I am the woman who pays your salary. And I am the woman who just watched you abuse my staff, violate labor laws, and insult a loyal woman who has dedicated 20 years of her life to this family business. Richard fell to his knees. He grabbed his hands together in a prayer motion. Ms. Jenkins, please. I am so sorry, he begged desperately. I didn't know it was you. If I had known it was you, I would have never said those things. I was just trying to protect the high-class image of your estate. I did it for the business. Do not lie to me, Sarah yelled, her voice echoing through the building. You did not do this for the business. You did this because you are a bully. You did this because you think wealth gives you the right to treat human beings like garbage. You think a fancy suit makes you better than a server or an elderly grandmother. Let me tell you something, Richard. You are wrong. Sarah ignored Richard's begging. She turned her back on him completely. She walked over to the table where the elderly Martha was sitting in absolute shock. Sarah took Martha's fragile hands into her own. Martha, I am so incredibly sorry for how you were just treated, Sarah said gently. My name is Sarah Jenkins. My grandfather built this place, and he always told me about your incredible dedication. Today, your days of heavy lifting are over. Sarah turned to the kitchen staff. Chef, prepare our finest meal immediately. Bring out our best dessert. Everything is completely free of charge for Martha. The head chef nodded vigorously. Yes, Ms. Jenkins. Right away. Martha had tears in her eyes. Oh my goodness. Thank you, dear. You look just like your grandfather. Thank you, Martha. You are our family, and you deserve the absolute best. Sarah smiled warmly. Sarah then turned her attention back to the staff. She looked at the young worker who had been bullied earlier. From this exact moment on, Richard Skinner is terminated from this company, Sarah announced clearly. He will leave the premises immediately. He is banned from entering any property owned by our franchise. If he refuses to leave, call security and have him removed for trespassing. Richard let out a soft groan. He knew his career was completely dead. He stood up slowly, keeping his head down. He walked toward the exit, looking small, defeated, and utterly humiliated. No one looked at him. No one said goodbye. Sarah turned back to the young worker. The corporate office will be reviewing all the financial records of this branch. Every single dollar that Richard illegally deducted from your paycheck will be paid back to you this Friday, with a bonus for your trouble. Your shifts will be regular, and you will always be paid your proper overtime. The young worker looked at Sarah in absolute disbelief. Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. You saved my job. You are a hard worker, Sarah said. You deserve a supervisor who protects you, not one who exploits you. Sarah stood in the center of the estate. She looked at the servers, the chefs, and the customers who were now clapping loudly. The dark cloud that had hung over Beaumont Crest for months had finally lifted. She realized that her undercover mission was a massive success. She had saved her estate, but more importantly, she had saved her people. She reminded everyone that true luxury is not about expensive suits or gold watches. True luxury is about the kindness, respect, and dignity we show to every single human being, no matter what they look like or how much money they have in their pocket. Sarah walked out of the estate that afternoon with a light heart. She was ready to return to her corporate office, but she knew she would never forget her time in the plain black apron. She would continue to protect her workers. She would continue to punish the bullies. And she would always remember that a simple act of kindness can change the world. Thank you so much for watching this incredible story today. If this story touched your heart and reminded you about the power of kindness, please hit that like button. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel so you can enjoy more inspiring and dramatic stories just like this one. Share this video with your family and friends to spread a positive message today. We will see you in the next video. Have a beautiful and blessed day.